Hi, I'm Stevie, and this is 50 for 50, where I look at 50 movies that have inspired me in some way over the past 50 years. Today, I ask, who are you going to call as I look at a personal favourite movie that is here just because I love the movie? Ghostbusters Afterlife may not be the perfect Ghostbusters movie, but in terms of modern day cinema, it is, in my opinion, it is a perfect movie. Now, I know there is no such thing as a perfect movie, and opinion is subjective. I would argue that Schindler's List, Jaws, and Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope are perfect movies, but you may disagree, and you would be right to. If that's how you feel. But in terms of modern, post COVID era of cinema, Ghostbusters Afterlife is to me as close to perfection as a movie as you can get. I'll be transparent right from the start. Star Wars and Indiana Jones, they've had some great sequels over the years. Rogue One, The Last Jedi have been two of my favourites, and I loved Indiana Jones of the Dial of Destiny. But no movie in recent years has moved me in a way that Ghostbusters Afterlife has. Now, going into Ghostbusters Afterlife, even with some well cut trailers, I was expecting, Ghostbusters 3, but it didn't take me long to realise this wasn't the movie. I wanted a Ghostbusters movie, and what I got was a family movie that dealt with more with loss than anything else. And from the opening shot to the post credits, I was immersed in a world that Jason Reitman and Gil Keenan brought to the screen. I'd seen an interview with Dan Aykroyd where he said that after you'd watched Afterlife, you'd want to get back in line and get another ticket. I thought nothing could be that good, but he was right, and my fiance and I saw it 3 times on release. Now, it wasn't because, as a Ghostbusters fan, I felt obligated to watch it again on the big screen. It's because I loved it so much, I had to see it again. Now, there are movies I've seen multiple times because that's what I've always done. Star Wars and fast turnover onto Disney Plus MCU. As I've always been looking for Easter eggs. Or I enjoyed the movie and I just wanted to see it again on the big screen before it hit the home market. But with Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's because of the story. The Easter eggs were cool, but they were just cool on the side. I absolutely loved the story on Ghostbusters Afterlife. I suppose the first thing I enjoyed about Afterlife was the characters. I'm sorry to bash on the Star Wars sequels, but compared to Han, Luke, Leia, the sequel characters are inferior and lack the George Lucas touch. Love or hate the Star Wars prequels, and I bet there are a lot of Star Wars fans that you bet as Star Wars fans you can name more characters in the prequels than you can in the Star Wars sequels. After Afterlife, with Afterlife, the characters are three-dimensional. They are memorable. You can remember the names as much as the actors who play them. I instantly fell in love with the Spengler family. Even Paul Rudd's Gary Gooberson fits perfectly into the mix and isn't just there for star power. It is as perfect as an ensemble cast as you can get for a family film, and Afterlife is a family film. In the third act, when the legacy Ghostbuster characters turn up, and there was that moment in uniform, I found myself on first viewing where I was thinking, it's great, we get to see the Ghostbusters again, but I really want to know what Callie, Trevor, Phoebe, Podcast Lucky, and Gary were doing. I was immersed and invested in their story. Now compare this to Star Wars Episode 7 The Force Awakens, when the legacy characters show up. They showcase the shortcomings of the new characters as the legacy characters are more interesting and they elevate the movie. The use of legacy characters in Ghostbusters Afterlife is more organic. There is a setup from the start, and I mean right from the start. This isn't here the children doing what the parents would be doing for sequel money. Harold Ramis is a legend, and Egon Spengler is such an iconic character. The way Egon is handled in Afterlife is perfect. From being in the shadows at the start to the reveal at the end, I have to admit I cried my eyes out multiple times watching this. But on a recent rewatch, it was the emotion in Dan Aykroyd's Ray Stantz face that really got me. Egon Spengler is seen as a stay-away dad who abandoned his child and his Ghostbusters friend to move to the middle of the nowhere and gone crazy. As the movie progresses, we see how sad it all was for him. And the ending when we see Ghost Egon, which I really wasn't expecting, is one of the most emotional things I've ever watched in the cinema. And the For Harold dedication before the end of the film credits really openly had me. I was gone completely in the cinema. It really hit me hard. Now, I get emotional in films all the time, but Ghostbusters Afterlife was next level for me. The use of 1984 deleted scene featuring Harold Ramis and Annie Potts at the end on the post credits, and the sequel setup with the firehouse gave the movie the perfect ending. Ghostbusters Afterlife didn't pander to what the fans want, which is why it works for me. Jason writers gave us what we, as Ghostbusters fans, needed, not what we may have wanted. Afterlife was needed so that we could say goodbye to Egon and say hello to these new characters. They're just not that aren't just thrust upon us. It was never a case of here are these characters, these are the new Ghostbusters, accepted. We have character development, and that feels organic, and it just doesn't feel forced. During COVID-19 lockdown, my fiance and I rewatched all of the Ghostbusters movies. We're talking about all of them: original Ghostbusters 2 and 2016's Answer the Call, and I fell back in love with the universe. So Afterlife was already a big deal before it was released for me. I watched all the trailers and everything I could find about the movie. I was not disappointed on release, and I considered the third act of Afterlife on the dirt farm, basically everything from when they escaped from Goza in the temple, to be perfection. I'll stick Ghostbusters Afterlife on to watch a scene and end up going back and rewatching the whole movie. I'll never tire of it, and this is a testament to the new characters. Now, don't get me wrong, seeing the original characters are great, but these new characters make you care for them as much as those ones that have been established for over 30 years. Again, this is just my opinion. Now, with the release of Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and the return to New York, I was expecting from the trailers what I call Ghostbusters 3, and I was right. Frozen Empire works perfectly as a Ghostbusters sequel because the time was taken in its Afterlife to establish the new characters. I really loved seeing Ghostbusters Afterlife in the cinema, but seeing Frozen Empire took me back to watching Ghostbusters and Ghostbusters 2 in the 1980s, and it reminded me how much I loved the original Ghostbusters movies on the big screen and how much it was an event back then. Seeing the Afterlife characters in the traditional Ghostbusters environment of New York was, for me, perfection and gave me that nostalgia vibe, but in a modern movie. Oh yeah, and having Slimer back was just a bonus. You got to love Slimer. I'm Stevie. This is 50 for 50 Ghostbusters Afterlife. Like and subscribe. Bustin makes me feel good.